Hey, what is good, Can't Believers? Welcome to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. In this season of pivoting and recognizing when your current season is not serving you anymore, I felt like this guest, Tucker Neuhaus, would be a perfect person to touch on what it feels like to throw yourself into this one dream or this one goal, and in one way or another, to have that call to adventure when life inevitably smacks you in the face and pushes you towards a new direction. I met Tucker a couple years ago when I had started working in professional baseball. He was a professional baseball player. And I think what really pushed me to build a relationship with him was his rigidity around his habits and his rituals. And so after very meaningful conversations of him coming back and returning to play after injury, Tucker made the decision to step away from the one thing that he thought was going to be his dream. And as he ushers himself into a new season and a new pivot in his life, going from a professional baseball player into a professional Alpine athlete, yes, you heard me correctly, we get a real quick dive into what it means to bring on mindfulness, what it means to trust in your community, and what it means to surround yourself with gritty, athlete, and talented entrepreneurs. I am so excited for you to hear this conversation. My man Tuck, I love you, bro. I'm so freaking proud of you. This was an absolute pleasure of having you on. I hope you all enjoy the episode. Let's get it. I've been a silent observer of yours for quite some time, since the last time that we spoke. And I think, Tuck, what I would love before we even get into introductions and everything like that, is to ask you, why the hell have you not invited me on one of your excursions?
Well, there's a bit of a learning curve, but you're welcome if it's something that you're interested in.
Dude, it looks like, again, I'm observing on what you're sharing on socials,
Yeah.
right? But to me, what is really cool, and I'm excited to dive into your story and whatnot, Tuck, for all those reasons. But I think what's cool is I've always gotten the sense from you that being outside is like a value system of yours. Am
Yeah.
I even remotely close?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, just being in nature, like wild places, it's incredibly therapeutic to me. That's like where I find peace as a person, is
I
in
mean, I'm
wild, remote places.
I'm thinking about this because when I first stumbled into like our working relationship,
Yeah.
uh, what I heard from you was like, yeah, he has a Sprinter van and he just travels up the coast with a couple other guys and they just work out. And I'm like, what? Who is this man?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but before we get too deep into things, I just want to say, like, when we were hanging out and seeing each other on a regular basis, I just want to say thank you for the person that you were to all of us, like day in and day out. Obviously, the last like year and a half, it was mainly rehab guys. So it's like
Yeah,
we're all whatever. Our careers are up in the air. It's super uncertain times.
yeah,
Um, where having trust with people was super hard. But you were always a person that like it felt like you weren't even affiliated with the team. It was like you
yeah,
treated everyone as individuals and like talked to us just like a parent or a friend. So I just want to
yeah.
say thank you for that. In that time of my life, and I know everybody else around, like we really always appreciated you. Just who you were to us was fucking really cool.
Bro, I appreciate that. We're 2 minutes and 30 seconds into this, and you're about to make me shed some tears
Well,
right
I
now.
yeah,
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you before we get into anything.
Bro, the feeling is very, very mutual. And I think, Tucker, what might be a really good place to start is how we met. I mean, what I understand, this is what I didn't understand going into it, right? I have all the skill set to be able to help, especially with a lot of our rehabilitation guys, not only perform at their best, but return to play for the things that they love doing. And I understood the tactics, but what I didn't understand was the psychological piece.
Yeah,
And I learned that pretty early on that maybe I'm not going to be able to help everyone, but I think where my strengths lie is in connection. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I really felt was a mutual experience between the two of us. So maybe, Tucker, a good place to start as we get excited about your story and you get to share this with our podcast family, for people who not only love competition, but also really love the ideas and inspiration and life lessons and heroes' journeys of people like yourself. So I would love to start, with your love of baseball into when we met, what was going on for you, and then we get to get into the real cool stuff, which is what you're doing currently, man.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So just a little bit about myself, I guess. Um, I got drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers when I was 17, signed a few weeks before my 18th birthday. I grew up
That's nuts.
in a baseball family. My dad was a college coach and a scout. So I grew up around the game. Baseball was a part of my life from the time that I could even comprehend what it was.
Yeah.
And then it was just such an organic thing. It was like I grew up in this environment. It's what I spent all my time doing, my focus, energy, just like the camaraderie of it was amazing. And then it ended up leading in to my first career, which was super cool. That was like never really an expectation. I just kind of fell into
So
it.
you didn't feel like you were gonna make it when you were younger. I
I
mean, you
mean,
were around it.
yeah, every kid has the dream of playing in the big leagues or the World Series or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never had that expectation. I was just like, oh well, it was more day to day for me. It's just like the experience, and I still try to hold on to that philosophy no matter what I'm doing, and not try and get too high or low or have these crazy expectations. And I don't know. That approach to things doesn't really work out for me very often.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah,
Which
that's
is
like
not,
my
which is not the, which is not what happens with other athletes,
yeah. Well,
especially what.
I don't enjoy the pressure that's obviously there's pressure that's put on you
Mhm.
once you have that limelight on you. But putting pressure on myself, it's like you show up with this attitude and how you want to approach every day, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You figure out
Yeah.
that was kind of always my approach to it. It's like I didn't want to have all these like grand dreams and expectations, and then I come out of it and I'm like, wow, this is a total failure. All that was a waste of time, which some people can find themselves. But especially with baseball, it's like anything. It can become like a vicious cycle of you set these goals and then you get to that goal and then it's the next one. It's like never ending. You're
You
not.
just move the goalposts, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like where it's defining success, right? Which is a whole nother conversation. Um,
I mean, we could spend a whole series of 10 episodes talking about that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay, so obviously you got drafted.
yep,
Uh, you played a couple seasons, and then you tapped into your rehab stints,
yeah.
right? Like another phase of your life. I mean, I don't know the background, Tuck, so I would love to learn like what happened from getting drafted and then recognizing like where your true values really lied.
Yeah, I think the biggest season, I think it was my fourth or fifth year. Like a week into the season, I broke my hand, and that was the most prepared I'd ever felt, like mentally and physically, for a season. And
Hmm.
I was like, this is going to be my breakout year. I had a really good first week of the season, broke my hand, and that was my first summer in rehab. And then that off season ended up playing in Australia. So I spent 3 months there, and then I lived in Hawaii for a little bit before that. Um, and kind of the world of travel, international travel, and experiencing different cultures. Obviously, there's like subcultures traveling all over the U.S.,
Hmm.
but that ignited just this, which I'd always had, like the curiosity of what's out there, what the world's like. But that was
Yeah.
like the first time that I got to experience that. Um, and it really changed my relationship with baseball playing in Australia because there's just that one league. There wasn't a hierarchy. There's a salary cap. It's like you know that you're only there for 3 months, and just
Yeah.
the clubhouse was different. Your relationships to coaches was different. It was so enjoyable, So that was like the big pivot in life and in my approach to baseball. Um, and then the following seasons, like my numbers started getting better. I was having way more fun. And then the year that I got injured, that was the best season that I was having in my career. I made the All-Star game. I was like possibly thought that a September call up may have been in the mix. Like things were starting to kind of work out.
Damn,
And
I
then,
didn't know this. Shit.
yeah. So I was, yeah, kind of on a high at that point. And then found out that I had a torn labrum, got surgery, and then just kept having complications. Ended up having another two surgeries after that within 18 months or something. And then my contract ended, went into free agency a week out of a surgery, and then COVID hit, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with this. I started finding other interests, and yeah, I was pretty burnt out just by the business of it at that point. I was like, there are new things that were grabbing my curiosity, and like life was clearly heading in a different direction.
Tucker, that part is nuts to me because I'm seeing a lot of similarities. Again, having a lot of guests on who they themselves were professional athletes, and then they started getting that tailwind of it doesn't always have to be like this. Like other things are capturing my interest, and even just you telling us a little bit of the story, I'm seeing some themes. Like the first time that you got injured, you said that you were the most prepared, mentally prepared that you had ever been.
Yeah,
And then this next time around, you were like having the season of your life where September call-ups might have been in the cards, and then something happened. So I know that you and I have had this conversation to some extent,
yeah,
but I would love to have it again and resurface it. How do you come back from something like that? Because I mean, again, we put expectations on ourselves, which I think none of us are immune to.
yeah.
But when things don't go your way, like what what do you tap into at that point, Tuck?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of it's just time. It's like what 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 what, whether it's
Time heals.
yeah. No, it's like as cliched as it is. That's what I've found. It's like, but then obviously coming out of my career, then COVID hit, and it was like everything was shut down. We're in a global pandemic, and I was like, "Fuck, what do I do now?" I was like I have some stuff that I'm interested in, and then everything's closed, and I'm like, I was in a weird space for a while. I was like just in this limbo stage where I was like, dude, I have no idea
Yeah.
what's next for me, what I'm doing now. It was a tough time, as it was for everybody.
Yeah.
Not to make myself sound like the victim, um, but no, a lot of it, same thing. It's like the approach of just taking it day by day and having some sort of faith in what's calling out to you, like what you feel in your heart and what you feel inspired by. It's like I always feel if you chase that, even if it doesn't work out however you thought it might, which it almost never does. Um,
Dude, those are facts.
yeah,
Those are facts. It's like the most frustrating thing
yeah,
about the universe. You're like, dude, I had a plan, and the universe is like, hey, fuck off. Like you don't know what you want.
right. Which that's kind of how I live now. It's like I can have an idea of something in my head, but I know that ultimately it's like being able to be flexible and malleable in that. It's like that's how comfort is found. Is like,
Ooh.
yeah, you can throw me wherever you want, and like I'll adapt to it. Which is that's kind of try how I try and live now. Is trying to be as adaptable as possible.
Adaption's a hard thing. It's a skill that you learn over time through a lot of failure.
Yeah,
I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like I adapt really well, and at the same time, it doesn't come without its really, really hard moments. I mean, if we're looking back at the pandemic, it obviously changed a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
yeah,
For you, looking back at that time, I mean, it was time to embrace the pivot,
yeah,
right? We've talked a lot about this with a lot of our guests, and I think it's a theme that continues to come up that I really want us to like really dive into, Tuck. So like what was the embrace the pivot moment and how has that pivoted into what you're doing today, which to me is like, He's outside. He's connecting with his higher power. Like this seems great.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't think that there's like one aha moment. I don't think there's like a pivot moment or anything. Um,
Hmm.
Definitely, I mean, my life now kind of revolves around snowboarding and mountaineering. That's like where life has taken me. But yeah, there wasn't like this one moment where it's just been like a chain of events where it's like this has worked out, this hasn't. But I don't know. I don't know where it's going, but this is. I was telling my dad this the other day. Like right now, this is the most fulfilled I've ever felt in my life because I feel like it's something. It's kind of mine. I created it. There's nobody that told me how to do it or how I should do it or how I should be doing it. Like it was just I had this idea and I chased it and I kind of get to create it by myself, which has been pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's dive into it. So the pivot happened. What are you doing now? Like, why are you the most fulfilled you've ever been?
I mean, it's a loaded question.
We
So
got time,
yeah,
bro.
yeah. So pretty much my main driving thing right now is snowboarding, but mainly backcountry snowboarding. So it's a mix of alpinism and snowboarding. Um,
Hmm.
so most people are familiar with skiing and snowboarding at a resort with lift access.
Yeah.
And kind of what I've been drawn to is you just you go hike whatever you want, and that's where you snowboard. So you're out past the wilderness boundary. There's no safety net or anything like that. You're there with a couple partners, and you pick your terrain and climb whatever mountain it is, and then snowboard down it. For
You're
that's
literally
like
and
the basic.
figuratively creating your own path.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, it's been a pretty wild adventure, but it's so fulfilling because it's still so new to me. This is
yeah.
my third season ever snowboarding, and I grew up in Florida, which is
Yeah, I was
uh,
gonna say, did did you grow up in Florida?
yeah, yeah, so pretty far from the mountains.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just this whole new world that I'm getting to explore, and it's same thing. It's like being comfortable with change. The mountains are constantly changing,
Hmm.
so like learning how to tune into that and listen to what the snow's saying and all sorts of stuff. And I've had great mentorship pretty much the whole way, which has been mind blowing for me. Some people that I get to spend time with and learn about the mountains. So it's been pretty awesome so far.
I mean, Tuck, what can you glean from this opportunity? I mean, what I'm hearing is mentorship is super special,
Yeah,
which I can imagine when, especially when you're out there. I don't know how dangerous this is. I do know that there is probably some danger attached to it.
yeah. It's pretty dangerous. I mean, relatively, yeah, yeah. It's pretty high danger for the most part.
I was gonna say it's pretty
But
dangerous,
but
right?
but there's so much that goes into it to give yourself a margin of safety. Um, so that's where the mentorship part comes into it. It's like if you don't know what you're doing and you go out there, it's like, yeah, you're climbing a whatever 14,000 foot mountain with avalanche danger and rockfall and all sorts of stuff. So learning how to navigate that and when the doors open up and when you can get on stuff and when you can't, um,
Hmm.
all of that is things that you need people around you to learn from.
I mean, what other things are you learning from this opportunity? I can just knowing you, I can think of things that I think would speak to you, but I don't want to speak for you. So like, what are the nuggets you're gleaning from this, Tuck?
Oh, there's so many. I don't know. That's a tough question. It's like because there's something new like every time. Um,
Hmm.
but I think the big one is like going back to adaptivity is like being able to be comfortable with change and like something happens and you're flexible and you can make decisions in high pressure situations, which a lot of that like the baseball background, like learning how to deal with discomfort and questioning yourself, all that stuff. It's like that's transition straight into what I'm doing now. So there were a lot of tools that I got from baseball that are I can apply to snowboarding and photography and all that kind of stuff.
You had a post. I want to say I have it up actually right now. So it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at September 14, 2020.
So, okay.
And so what spoke to me at that time, because I remember I saved it because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to use this, but I'm going to use it. So fast forward almost 3 years later,
Yeah.
you had started with where are you at mentally, physically, and emotionally? So I want to ask you that same question right now. I mean, you're tapping into something that is causing you to adapt, to being open to change,
Yeah.
right? I can imagine that there's a huge aspect of mindfulness that goes into it because you are literally looking at your surroundings, not only to keep yourself safe, but to be able to do what you need to do,
Hmm.
right? So, Tucker, for you, as you're stepping into this, and you've been doing this for how long now?
This is my third season.
Third season.
Yeah.
Okay. And where are you at currently?
I live in a small mountain town. It's about 15 minutes north of Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
It's called Truckee, California. So it's in
Ah,
the
Truckee.
Sierra Nevada mountain range.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess just same question for you. I mean, it's something that you would asked, just something in one of your posts, but 3 seasons in, getting the mentorship that you needed, noticing that there are some skills that you learned from baseball that you are now using to this day. I mean, where are you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Like, how would you answer that?
Very fulfilled, like we were just talking about. But I don't know. It's this weird mix of like my energy and drive right now is almost as high as it ever has been, but very humbled, which is like that's what keeps drawing me to the mountains and why I love spending as much time as I can in them. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just this like this peace that I gather from them. It's like this. I'm like constantly humbled, not just by the aesthetic of it, but the consequences and everything that surrounds that.
Hmm.
So it's a weird mix of like having this motivation, but feeling incredibly humbled at the same time.
Yeah. There's definitely a learning curve if I ever get the invite, by the way,
Yeah,
because um, like I also share that value system of what being outside does for me too.
yeah,
Um, Having just been, maybe not off the grid in the same way that you are. I'll get there at some point.
yeah.
But there's a lot of value in being with yourself and being outside. So, when you're there, Tuck, like what sort of thoughts are crossing your mind? I mean, are they the same thoughts that you had when you were competing at a high level?
No, because there's really no. I don't feel any pressure to perform.
Ah,
Um, yeah, like the external pressure just isn't there, which is really nice. But it's also like the most present I've ever felt. There's not 10,000 people staring at you. It's just like you, maybe a handful of people in the mountains, and it's quiet and there's nobody around, and you're making decisions together and talking about stuff. It's obviously super special to me. Um, but yeah, I would say like the external forces in terms of like a business or money or whatever it is, like I don't feel the pressure of that. And since I'm so new to it, it's like I know that there's going to be failures, so I'm like wide open to that. I'm like, if something goes wrong, I'm going to learn for it. There's no more time period. Like I feel like this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Which with professional sports, you have this super short window to maximize your ability and whatever all those accomplishments and make as much money as you can. And it's like as soon as that window's closed, like on to the rest of your life.
yeah,
So coming out of baseball, it was like I tried to focus a lot of decisions I made around sustainability. Like what's a way that I can live for the rest of my life? What are things that I can do for the rest of my life to where I have this fulfillment and joy? And it's not just like trying to crunch as much out of myself in 7 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and then figure things out after that. But like
I
you
think
as a dietitian, like I was just telling someone the other day they were juicing, And I was like,
you're, you're like, oh, my boy Des would fucking lose his shit
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
But I was like, that was one of my dietitians always talked about creating sustainability around your diet, and not, let's
Mhm.
not even call it a diet. It's just how you eat, how you treat your
Yeah,
body. It's like creating this
let's go.
sustainability so that you don't feel that pressure. You don't feel stress of like, oh fuck, I had a beer at 10 o'clock. Now I'm
Yeah,
not going to sleep right. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like you were always pretty chill with that. You were like, dude, you guys are
yeah,
burning so many cal. Like just
yeah.
try to create
Chill the
some,
fuck
yeah,
out.
yeah, create something sustainable for yourself so you're not stressed all the time, but you can still perform at a high level.
Yeah,
But yeah, just to echo that, like I feel that in my life in most aspects right now. It's just trying to create sustainability, which is, yeah, pretty much the first time in my life where I can actually have this long term vision for my life.
hmm,
It was always just that the industry of baseball is so cutthroat. It's like
yeah,
you try to approach it day to day, but ultimately, it's like you're on the chopping block at all times.
yeah,
So it's nice not having to deal with that anymore. The chopping block now is death, really. It's like something
mm,
goes wrong in the mountains and you die.
shit.
Yeah, which is kind of nice because there's like a different pressure and obviously different circumstances. So like that weight is heavy on you, but it's nature that's making the call. It's not
Yeah,
some asshole with a suit on.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. Fuck those guys.
yeah,
I think what's really interesting, Tucker, just again, you and I, right around that 2020 time is also when I had left the club
yeah,
to go out on my own because I had felt uh, another calling as well.
yeah,
And so it's interesting because you and I obviously had thrown some DMs back and forth, just saying what up. Just because I think you and I have it like that, where we're genuine friends and we would genuinely want to be next to each other.
totally.
Um, I think what's really cool, just hearing you talk about that, is a couple things. I think the first thing that I heard that's really cool is that there's really no external pressure anymore,
Hmm.
which I myself, even to this day, like I put such an amazing amount of internal pressure visualizing that there's external pressure. It's just like how I try to connect with that those competitive parts of myself.
Hmm.
But I think what is really nice and just hearing you talk about the sustainability piece is I will have moments when I'm able to be present, and that's when I start thinking about sustainability. So, Tuck, to hear you say that's where you're at, I just want to let you know, man, I'm so glad that I heard this because prior to even jumping on this recording, I had to go for a walk, like a mindfulness walk, to be like, all right, I need to tap into some sort of energy where I can hold the conversation and hold space for what the person is saying.
Yeah.
But just hearing you say that, man, I think is so valuable for our listeners and also just really valuable for me.
Oh, cool.
So thank you. Thank you for the fucking reminder that I also told you a long time
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
I think those pieces are super. Not only are they really vulnerable, but like they are things that I think a lot of us can get a lot from. So the fact that you found something for yourself that helps you to live your values, man, I think is super dope.
yeah, yeah. I'm super lucky that I've found that because I keep in touch with a bunch of my old teammates and good friends. And it's like a lot of guys come out of that world, something they've been doing as little kids, and they're
Mhm.
completely lost. And I was there for a while, but it's like I found something else to switch that energy and focus into. But some
Mhm.
people aren't that lucky. And it's like they spend years
See
or
it
a
too.
lifetime and they're just like, this was a chapter of my life where life was different and now everything else is like, it's like going from a 10 to a 5 and you're like, oh, this is life now, this is the real world. I
Yeah.
remember guys always saying that. They're like, oh yeah, whatever, after this season I'll have to go to the real world. And I'm like, fuck that, what does that even mean? I'm like,
Yeah. That sounds boring as
yeah, I'm like,
hell.
what are you talking about? That never made sense to me. But no, yeah, I've been super fortunate to find something that, yeah, daily I'm inspired by.
All right. So I got two things for you.
Okay. I'll only let you do one. No, go ahead.
No, 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 we're doing two. Shut up. First thing, I know you're using your social platform kind of like uh, it seems as if rather kind of like a visual storytelling platform of just getting some thoughts
Yeah.
out. I don't see you on a TED stage at some point in the next 5 years. I'm gonna give you shit. That's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of our listeners and a lot of people that have been on, sometimes embracing the pivot is really hard
Yeah.
because it causes you to go through a grief process of what once
Right.
was. So I think, Tuck, for you, like, I think you're a perfect person to speak to this. You know, if someone out there listening to this is having a different calling and possibly needs to embrace the pivot so that they can go out and live a more fulfilled life. I mean, Tuck, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, just to not be scared. Try to embrace change, really. It's like welcome change. That's one thing that I've found. It's the only inevitable in life. It's constant, is change. And it's something that we try to reject as much as we want. So,
Yeah.
which Craig Counsell, this was another thing with the Brewers that has really stuck with me. The last couple of years, he always preached like being comfortable, being uncomfortable. That was like
Yeah.
one thing that has really stuck with me. So it's like leaning into that, knowing that there's lessons to be learned, knowing that that's where the growth is outside the comfort zone. So it's like not trying to create this life that societal norms is like we want this little box where our I's are dotted and T's are crossed and we feel comfortable. And then a global pandemic hits and society falls apart. And then it's like, hey,
Yeah.
how do we react to that? How can we adapt? It's something that humans have dealt with since the start of time. And I feel like
Mhm.
we've lost connection to that a little bit. So that's something that I'm trying to embrace more. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, to stay open minded and not like put all these little boxes and compartmentalize
Mhm.
aspects of your life. Um, which once again, I've always kind of lived, or at least in the past decade of my life, I've been somewhat on the fringes of society or the norm of how I approach
Okay.
life and how I live my life. Um, and I try not to be preachy about that. It's like if people have questions, I'll tell them my
Yeah.
perspective on things. But it's like do
Yeah.
whatever you want. It's your life. Um, so that's pretty much what I'd say. And if something doesn't work out, like be fine with that. There's so much shit to do in this life. It's like
So
yeah,
much.
we find ourselves in these little bubbles and that doesn't work out. And then you're like, I don't know. It's tough to explain for me. Um, but yeah,
I love that. I mean, I'm also interested because like you and I have had a ton of conversations about like habits and rituals and things to do and things not to do. But like where you are in your season of life, Tucker, like what are the 2 to 3 rituals or things that you do that really help you right now to either stay present or I don't know, to help you connect?
I mean, it's mainly just spending time in nature. That's
Yeah.
the biggest one. Um, yeah, I don't really have like routines or rituals per se. Like I used to,
Mhm.
which was it's been fun to try to
That's an evolution for you, by the
big
way,
time,
too. Like, if you think about it, like you were real big
big
into
time. Yeah,
rituals,
yeah,
right? There was also just from my standpoint too, like a great deal of rigidity. So, like, it seems like getting out of that has also been incredibly freeing.
yeah. It's been really cool. Um, which I've talked to a bunch of snowboarders about this. Like when they hear about baseball and stuff, they're like, "Wow, you went from organized sports having all this structure to snowboarding,
Yeah,
which is literally like
which is
totally DIY. You're doing whatever you want." So like trying to figure out how I fit into that because I still like the human performance side of it. I
yeah, yeah,
still take fairly seriously, but same thing. Like I don't put pressure on myself to like, oh, you gotta whatever. But
yeah,
it's something that stuck with me. It's like I still want to physically and mentally perform at a high level. Um, but whatever, when you're camping out in the backcountry for 5 nights, there's no hot tubs or foam rollers or anything like that to where you're like, all right, now I feel ready. You can't get a massage. So,
Yeah.
so that's been challenging, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton of structure in my life anymore, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And all
That's
of my work is pretty much all freelance at this point.
uh
Um, so it's like I'll pick something up for a project and then it's on to something else, which is nice.
which is funding your passion projects out of this, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and now I'm getting into some snowboard photography. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so now I get to go do the things that I want to do and be in that environment, and now it's sustaining my lifestyle too, which is nice.
Which I'm also really sure that killing the rigidity of what once was and into the freeing aspects of just whatever comes, like I can also imagine that that is a really great environment for creativity as you step into this photography business.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean that's nice with photography and design is ultimately it's up to you. You're the one telling the story. Like you're the one
Yeah,
clicking the shutter. It's like there's nobody there saying it has to look like this or it's got to be like that, which there was a lot of that in baseball. And if you didn't abide to that, then you're put on this shit list or whatever. Which
yeah,
I definitely felt that, like as I became more free with myself and how I wanted to approach my career, but just my life. There's definitely a lot of backlash in that industry. People kind of thought that I had this attitude that I could do whatever I want. And I'm like, no, this is my career. This is my life. Like, I
yeah,
could get traded tomorrow or released or whatever, and I'm the one that has to live with that. So I'm going to make decisions that I
hmm
can sleep with at night,
yeah.
which was a challenging process, but I feel like that's pretty much where I'm at now, and it feels really good.
Well, I think that's what makes you special as an individual. You know what's best for you, and maybe you don't have a clear picture of what that looks
Yeah,
like. But in this moment, that's what I've always really valued about you, Tuck, is in this moment, I'm not okay with this decision. So I'm going to make this other one that I feel is best for me in my future. Cue
yeah,
sustainability.
yeah. And long term, it's like if you make those decisions, you're going to end up being surrounded by the people that love you for who you are. You're not like
hmm
making a decision to try and whatever smooch whatever, you know how it goes in the
Yeah.
business world. Like
Yeah.
you're not trying to climb this ladder, you're just trying to be yourself, and ultimately, yeah, you're
Yeah.
surrounded by the people that you want to be with.
Yeah. I've always hated that saying, insert entity, it's a
Yeah,
business. I've always hated that because I'm like, the people who are inside of this business are
yeah,
human. Humans crave connection. Like there's also some like healthy communication that can go
right,
on,
right. Yeah, which
which I've never been okay
yeah,
with.
yeah, I struggled with that a lot my last couple of years in baseball. It was
hmm
eating me alive, to be honest. But
Yeah.
then there's people like you, like I said, that I was like, fuck, dude, I really appreciate Desi because he treats me like a human being.
Yeah.
Like he's talking to
hmm
me, the human with emotions and going through
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
life stuff. It's not just like a little piece of the puzzle that could make somebody some money.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, man, feeling is very, very mutual, Tuck. I think I gained a lot of really great things from just reconnecting with you. And I think one thing for our listeners that I think is super important is being open to being adaptable and getting comfortable with being
yeah,
uncomfortable. I think if a lot of us can get into that mindset that things can change on a whim and that's okay, but making sure that you have people around you, making sure that you're okay with yourself enough to be adaptable to that type of change because even anything that you just talked about right now, as your friend, I feel really good that you have people around you that can guide
mhm,
you. I feel really great that you have a creative outlet. it feels even better that you found something where you can go be outside, which I think that's maybe why we connect in a weird granola way. I think we both love being
Yeah.
outside. Like it brings a lot of therapy to our lives. So just the fact, Tuck, that you've been able to find that, man, I think our listeners can gain a great deal of value just from hearing that, is really pushing them to like, how can you be more adaptable to life, and who or what do you need around you in order to be successful and whatever the pivot is in your life. So I think those things, Tuck, I think are amazing, man. So I so appreciate you taking the time, bro, to tell a little bit of your story. I mean, seeing the snowboarding vids and whatnot, I was like, yo, what the fuck is this dude doing right now? It has to be dope. Like Tucker doesn't do stupid
Yeah.
things.
I try not to.
So man, I want to leave us with two of our last questions. I know that you were like, hey, is there any questions that you want to ask? Like, I try to make sure that I keep this super organic, but I do ask any of our amazing guests the same two questions. And so I want to ask you the same. So, obviously, this is the Can't Believe I Made It
Mhm.
podcast. So, have you made it? And if not, what does making it look like in your season of life right now?
That's a good question. To me, there is no it. There is no making it. Like it, life. I guess making it would be death. That's like the final chapter of life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I see is making it. Like, oh, I made it through this life. Um, yeah, there's no like end goal. Like I think the whole concept of making it, like we talked about, it's like you make it
Mm-hmm.
to that and then there's a new goal. It's like this constant
Yeah.
cycle, this rat race, that's something that you're chasing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I've found it's here and now. That's what we have is the present moment. So it's like living that. That's it. That's making it. You're already there. You just have to
Yeah.
be able to give yourself space to actually live in that. But that's just my personal philosophy on it. I don't think that there
I
is
love
this
it.
like thing that you should be striving for. It's like all here now.
Mm-hmm.
Is granola? Does that sound some guy that lived in his van or
Dude,
what?
I'm literally on the last chapter in The Power of Now with
Yeah,
Eckhart
yeah,
Tolle, and like it's just changing things for me too. Where I'm like, fuck, everything that I've ever created for myself has been time
yeah,
bound.
yeah,
Like, how do I reverse that? You know what I mean?
yeah,
So even I'm cool with the granola answer,
yeah,
bro. That's the stage of life that I'm in right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
I love that. All right, Tuck, last question for you, and then we'll let you go. But when I say goodbye to our audience, don't go
Okay,
yet because I just want to connect real quick before we
yeah.
get going. Um, where can people find you? What sort of things do you have going on that you could use some support with, or just some eyes? Like, how can we as a pod family support you?
Oh, I mean, from like a social standpoint, I'm not huge on social media. I have Instagram, obviously. Um, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the only thing. My handle is Tuki19, and that's pretty much it. My email is my full name, Tucker Neuhaus at Yahoo. Other than that, yeah, I keep a pretty low profile with what I'm doing. I don't blog or anything
Yeah,
like that. Um, but yeah, and anybody that's out there that wants to reach out, feel free to any questions or whatever. I'm more than happy
yeah.
to chat with people.
I love it,
Yeah.
bro. It feels really good. Again, I've been observing a lot of guys that I was connected to as well that were in professional baseball, and um, some of them doing some different things that I can tell they're really, really uncomfortable with, and it shows. So I think you're absolutely one person that I was like, you know what? This person has found a way to live their passion and what they're doing. And to be honest, bro, like none of your granola answers surprise
Oh,
me. I fucking love it. And I love you for that. So I just want to let you know, human to human, dude, I so appreciate your journey, bro. I so appreciate hearing your story because I don't think that I've heard it, and I wanted to have it here because I think it's super special. But, dude, from one friend to another, man, I love you,
thanks, Des.
buddy.
I love you too,
Congratulations.
brother. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, for all of our listeners out there, make sure that you give Tucker a follow if you want to just follow in his story. I think what's really valuable when we look at embracing the power of pivoting, whatever that looks like in your life, is being adaptable. Change is really, really hard. And if you can care for yourself through it enough to be present into the now, I think a lot of really valuable things come. So, Tuck, again, man, thank you so much for jumping on, dude. I think this is super timely. I needed to hear this. so so I appreciate you, bro. But when we end here, don't go because I just want to say what up for a
Yeah.
little bit. But
Yeah.
appreciate you,
Thanks,
man.
Des.
Cool. All right. For everyone out there, you know the drill. If there's something that really spoke to you, please do yourself the favor, screenshot it. You can share it on your socials, tag us, tag Tucker. I think what's really valuable is when we hear some really inspirational messages, sharing them, you might change someone's life. And I think that's really cool and the power of connection. So I'll see you all in the next one. Later.